You are now tuning in to the story of Noddy Blues, a sequel to Blue Moon of Aching, also available here on YouTube to listen to. This is narrated and created by the author Dala. Please like, subscribe, and visit iCreateStories.com to support the creator. Thank you, and now let the story begin.
In a previous tale, Queen Jinabadi of ancient Aki desperately flees from her sworn enemy's deadly magic. Her heart racing and her mind frantically searching for a way out, she harnesses the last of her powers and teleports herself into the future, arriving in the year 2023. As she opens her eyes, she finds herself standing in the midst of one of the largest cities in the world, New York City. The towering buildings and bustling streets overwhelm her senses as she takes in the sights and the sounds of this strange new world. The air is thick with the scent of pollution and the constant hum of cars, and the people fill her ears. Yet amidst all the chaos, there is a sense of energy in life that she has never experienced before. As the city shuffled with spring energy, Queen Jinabadi sat in a dark and cold alley, her white gown standing out against the dingy surroundings. She had just been robbed of most of her gold jewelry and was now feeling more vulnerable than ever before. Struggling to sit up, she squinted her eyes in confusion. Fear and uncertainty filled her as she surveyed the unfamiliar alleyway. With amnesia clouding her mind, she can't even remember who she is. "Young lady?" a voice calls out. "Young lady, are you okay?" the voice continued. Badi, terrified and confused, didn't respond to a voice of language she didn't understand or recognize. It was an elderly, brown-skinned lady passing by the alley and tossing some trash away. She noticed Jinabadi standing there, rubbing her arms as the cool night air breezed by. The older lady got closer in concern. "What's your name?" Jinabadi shook her head, speechless, shivering with her eyebrows crunched. The lady began to remove one of her sweaters and offer it to her. The lost and unsure Jinabadi stared at the sweater and hesitated to reach out for it. "Here, take it. You can have it. Put it on, it'll keep you warm." Jinabadi still didn't take it, so the lady threw the sweater around Badi's shoulders. "It's fine, sweetie, here," the lady said, and gave Badi a strange look. Badi shuffled in her speech in an unknown language. "Kitamama, she said as she looked at the lady. In confusion, the lady responded. What you speaking? Spanish? I don't speak that, huh? Where do you stay?" Badi started to stare heavily toward the end of the alley where all the cars passed. "Do you need to go to the hospital? Are you hurt anywhere?" With no response, "Young lady," Badi said, "Yatamanata," referring to the cars. The lady still couldn't understand what she was saying in her native language. The lady stood there looking and wondering what was wrong with her. "Do you need to use a phone to call anyone?" She whipped out her cell phone, offering it to her, but Badi just looked at the woman weird again. It was getting clear she didn't understand anything. "Well, it's getting late and colder. I'm ready to go eat, and I hate to leave you out here." The lady paused for a moment and with a stern glance at Badi, Do I know you from somewhere? Child, you look so familiar." Jinabadi takes a few steps toward the end of the alley, curiosity pulling her toward the busy street with passing cars. The elderly lady walks alongside her, observing Jinabadi's expression of the shock as she sees a busy street for the first time. Standing there, Jinabadi is both puzzled and amazed, taking in every direction with wide eyes. Her chest rises rapidly as she takes desperate breaths, trying to make sense of all of it. "Young lady?" Badi's gaze remained fixed, her mind elsewhere as the lady waved her hand in front of her face. "I live upstairs," the woman said, using hand gestures to communicate. "You're welcome to use my phone and get warm." Body's lost expression didn't change until the woman used another gesture to suggest eating, pointing in a particular direction. "Do you want something to eat?" the woman asked, leading the way towards her building. Without any hesitation, Badi followed close by. "I hope there's someone who can come pick you up," the lady said as they reached her front door. "You look so familiar. Have we met before? Maybe at the church?" she continued as she unlocked and opened the door. Inside, there is a staircase leading to another door upstairs. "My place isn't much, but I do have a cat. Oh, wait, I don't know why I'm talking like you understand me," she said while slowly walking up the stairs, slowly and tired. "You may not understand me, but it looks like you're hungry." Despite trying to communicate through hand gestures, Badi couldn't tell the woman anything about herself or where she lived. However, the lady sensed some kind of unexplained energy from Jinabadi, but in a positive way. Badi didn't understand what the lady was saying. Still, she felt somewhat safe following her in the new world she had entered. Unfortunately, Queen Jinabadi wasn't aware of who she was and where she had come from. She was now a woman lost in a new world. She didn't even know her name, but was able to come into the care of an older woman who lived by herself. Maureen was a kind and caring woman who welcomed Jinabadi into her home without any pressure to leave. With limited communication between them, they relied on hand gestures and redirection to understand each other. What was supposed to be one night turned into weeks as Badi stayed with Maureen. At first, she didn't leave the house, but eventually ventured out with Maureen. Despite not having much, Maureen shared what little she had with Jinabadi, even sought help from her church for clothing and extra food from the pantry. While Maureen cooked for both of them, Badi mainly watched and wasn't comfortable eating meat, but she did enjoy the side dishes like cabbage, greens, potatoes, and sweet cornbread that Maureen cooked. Along with being thoughtful and caring, Maureen also showed Jinabadi how to do things and what she shouldn't do. Maureen also had a deep passion for music, and it was always playing in her home, filling the small space with joyful melodies. As she watched her new friend Badi nod along to the beat of the songs with her bright blue eyes, Maureen couldn't help but give her a nickname, Noddy Blues. As Noddy settled into her new life in the busy city, she eagerly embraced the opportunity to learn English bit by bit. However, her excitement was tempered by the realization that Maureen's neighborhood was not the safest place to live. Crime lurked around every corner, and the streets were plagued with homelessness, encampments, and illegal migrants seeking shelter and stability. Due to these unknown dangers, Noddy rarely left the safety of her home, only venturing out when accompanied by Maureen or on urgent trips to the store or church. The constant buzz of activity in the city seemed to fade away as they entered their small apartment, offering a brief relief from the chaos outside. The church was a bit confusing for Noddy at first, not understanding much of what was being said, but she could feel the passionate worship of the people and hear their soulful songs. She sat and observed, trying to make sense of the messages from the pastor about this God they believed in. But as she struggled to understand, she couldn't help but question who this God was and why everyone seemed to worship him. However, nothing was more entertaining to her than the choir singers. As the choir began to sing, Noddy couldn't help but feel her heart swell with joy. She sat next to Maureen in the back of the church, tapping her foot and humming along to the familiar hymns. But when the choir sang the particular upbeat and lively song, Noddy couldn't contain herself any longer. She stood up, her long brown hair swaying as she belted the lyrics in a strong, sultry voice. The people in front of her turned around in surprise, and even Maureen looked at her with wide eyes. After the service, many people approached Maureen and Noddy, wanting to know more about the mysterious woman with that captivating voice. Maureen kept their interaction short and sweet. introducing Noddy as Noddy Blues, a visitor from South America who didn't speak much English. But some were persistent, eager to learn more about this mystifying woman. But Maureen quickly ended their conversations and steered Noddy towards the bus, not wanting to reveal too much about their friendship to outsiders. As they left the church, Noddy's heart was full from the experience, both from singing with the choir and from having Maureen by her side. As they walked away from the church, Maureen complimented Noddy on her singing abilities. Confused, Noddy asked for clarification, and Maureen responded by singing a tune with a smile of recognition. Noddy agreed that she enjoyed singing. She then began to sing one of the songs from church. Impressed, Maureen exclaimed, "Wow, Noddy Blues, you have an incredible voice. Even though you may not remember much, you definitely have some pipes on you, girl." She shook her head in awe. Maureen explained as they waited for the bus. "We have to catch this bus to get to Walmart. I need to pick up a few things like my prescription." As they boarded the city bus and started heading towards the other side of town, Maureen noticed Noddy looking out the window with a confused expression as they passed through different neighborhoods. The contrast between the high-end and the lower-income areas was obvious. Noddy finally asked Maureen in her broken English, "Where? Why is it not like?" Maureen understood her question and replied, patting her purse, "Rich people live here, baby. They have a lot of money." Noddy didn't seem pleased by this answer and expressed her confusion. "He say God give to you." Who asked, "Believe? You believe? And God not give you everything?" she questioned. Maureen tried to explain. "God gives us what we need, Noddy. We don't always get what we want." Noddy continued questioning. "Who? One God pick who to give more?" Maureen shook her head slightly and turned to look out the window as they approached Walmart. Noddy's attention was captured by a teenage boy with oversized headphones, nodding his head and passionately rapping along to the music. She couldn't help but watch him, trying to decipher the lyrics that were lost to her ears. A small smile tugged at Maureen's lips as she noticed Noddy's intense focus, and she turned back to stare out the window as they made their way to Walmart. The store was a heavy hub of activity, full of people rushing around with overflowing carts and loud chatter. For Noddy, it was quite an overwhelming experience. She had never owned much besides a few hand-me-downs from Maureen's church. Now she found herself surrounded by racks upon racks of new clothes, shelves filled with shiny shoes, and there, with her messy ponytail of thick long hair, Noddy stood out among all the other shoppers. It was then that she realized she wanted to look different, to blend in with everyone else. Impulsively, she began browsing through the racks, her eyes lighting up as she spotted a shirt that caught her eye. "You need money, baby," Maureen observed with a hint of amusement in her voice. Noddy looked over at her with wide eyes and replied, holding up the shirt in her hand, "Paper thing?" In response, Maureen handed her $2 and patiently explained, "Yes, lots of paper thing. This is money." Noddy lifted her brow in confusion and asked, How I get paper?" With a soft chuckle, Maureen replied, "Well, you need a job, but I'm not sure how you can get one without an ID or anything." Disappointed, Noddy dropped the shirt and the money with a resigned expression on her face. Maureen rushed to pick up the $2 that Noddy had carelessly thrown onto the floor. "You don't just throw money down like that, girl," she scolded. Noddy responded with a perplexed expression, slightly questioning Maureen's reaction. "We need money to buy things, Noddy. It's how the world works." Maureen sighed and walked away, motioning for Noddy to follow her. That day, Noddy realized the importance of money and how it affects their daily lives. But as she pondered this concept, she couldn't help but feel confused and unsettled by the way things worked in the world. It all seemed to make sense, yet something felt off to her. As the first days of summer arrived, Noddy was finally able to see the city in all its heavy, lively glory. She often sat on the front steps of her apartment building, watching as people rushed by and cars honked their horns. But one day, as she sat there taking it all in, a familiar figure appeared around the corner. Maureen, with a small bag in hand, approached Noddy with a smile on her face. "The church had a rummage sale today and I got you something," she said cheerfully. Noddy's eyes widened as she opened the bag and pulled out an iPod and headphones. "The young lady at the church said it works fine and I tried it out," Maureen explained. "Ain't nothing but a bunch of garbage if you ask me. All that hip-hop music on there. Maybe we can figure out how to add some good stuff." "Thank you, Maureen," Noddy with a grateful smile. "You're welcome, Noddy Blues," Maureen replied before coughing and heading upstairs to her apartment. It didn't take Noddy long to figure out how to play the iPod. She just pressed the big play button in the middle, and she was off in her own world with her headphones on, swaying to the music. With each passing day, Noddy grew more comfortable with her new culture and lifestyle in the city. She enjoyed observing the unique styles of everyday people and became a huge fan of the hottest music around. Noddy and Maureen have formed a strong bond and were always there for each other. They did everything together, except on the days when Maureen was feeling ill. After spending months with Maureen, Noddy became familiar with their local community. She enjoyed going for walks around the neighborhood with her headphones on. People would stare at her or make fun of her unstylish look, but Noddy didn't let it bother her as she walked with confidence, lost in her music. When Maureen couldn't complete certain tasks due to illness, Noddy would step up and take charge. She even learned how to cook simple meals by watching Maureen. One hot day in late summer, Maureen asked Noddy to pick up some orange juice from the store. Noddy decided to wear an old tank top and shorts for the quick trip. "Here's my food card, Noddy Blues. Get some orange juice and grab something for yourself while you're there," Maureen said. As Noddy walked away, she noticed a tattoo on the back of her right shoulder that she hadn't seen before. It was written in a language she didn't recognize. "Oh, I didn't know you had a tattoo, Noddy," Maureen remarked. Confused, Noddy asked, What do you mean?" "You have a tattoo right there," Maureen said as she turned Noddy around to face away from the dresser mirror. "Look, right here." Noddy turned her body enough to see into the mirror. In an unknown language, she read aloud what it said, "Queen of all lands." "That's what it says?" Maureen confirmed. Noddy paused, trying to process this new information. "I read it, but how?" "It seems like you're starting to remember things," Maureen observed proudly. "But what it mean?" Noddy asked. "Queen of all lands," Maureen repeated. Noddy shrugged in confusion. "Interesting choice," Maureen commented before sitting down on her bed. Noddy left the room, her mind still reeling from the discovery. She couldn't stop thinking about it, even as she walked to the store for the orange juice. As she entered the store, Noddy was greeted by a familiar face behind the register. He asked how Maureen was doing. With a nod, Noddy reassured him that she was okay. He then asked her to relay his greetings to Maureen. Before checking out and leaving, Noddy asked him, "You have work for money?" "Oh, are you looking for a job?" he replied with a smile. "I'm sorry, we don't have any openings here." Noddy's blue eyes sparkled as she thanked him and turned to leave. But then he called out to her again. Wait. I think my friend down the street might need some help with his clothing store," he said. "His name is Rich. Just tell him Rob sent you." "Rich down the street?" Noddy repeated with a smile, pointing in the direction he had indicated. The man nodded and said, "Yes, that way. Look for a big yellow sign and fashion clothes in the window." "Okay, thank you," Noddy said gratefully. She headed towards a clothing store, taking in the sights and the sounds of the busy city streets. As she entered the store, a man's voice greeted her. "Hello, how can I help you?" he asked kindly. "Rich?" Noddy asked hopefully. "Yeah, that's me," the man replied with a smile. Rob, tell me here for work. You have work for me?" Noddy struggled to ask. "Oh, Rob sent you. Are you from around here?" "No." I can work, do good job." "You don't speak much English. Where are you from? Africa?" Noddy answered, yes. Noddy answered yes, not entirely sure where that was exactly. "Well, I could use part-time help. Can you work weekends? Weeknights? Oh, and I have another guy who closes, so you won't be alone." Noddy simply nodded to everything he said, but was not quite able to find the right words to respond. Okay then. What's your name?" Rich asked kindly. "Noddy Blues." Noddy Blues. That's interesting. That's an interesting name. I'm guessing the blues is for your blue eyes?" Rich chuckled. "Well, Noddy Blues, can you stop by tomorrow around this time and we can go over more details and get you started?" He pointed at his watch. "This time tomorrow, okay? Okay?" Noddy beamed with happiness and nodded. Yes, tomorrow." As she walked out of the clothing store, her heart was filled with joy. She couldn't wait to tell Marine about her new job. She made her way back to the apartment with a spring in her step. "I was starting to think you got lost, Noddy," Marine said as Noddy made her way back into the apartment. "Marine, I got work. I will make money now," Noddy said with a smile. "That's nice, Noddy. But where at?" Marine asked. "Clothes store with yellow picture." Oh, I know where that is. That's not far at all. I'm not sure if it's safe though, Noddy, to be working over there with all that drug activity going on. Just be careful, baby," Marine explained. "Yes, I will. Here's orange juice," Noddy said after opening it and pouring it in a glass for Marine. The next day, Noddy arrived on time for her new job, dressed in her best attire. Despite being a young and beautiful lady, she looked outdated or like an old woman because she couldn't afford new clothes. But this didn't bother Noddy. All she wanted was to work and earn money to buy things she desired and help Marine around the house. Her first day on the job proved to be a bit challenging at first, but Noddy quickly got the hang of things. Her responsibilities mainly consisted of unpacking new clothing and placing them on hangers, or folding them neatly for display. She spent most of her time on the sales floor, ensuring that all clothing and shoes were properly arranged and looked presentable. As her shift was nearing its end, two beautiful young women strolled into the store looking effortlessly stylish. Noddy couldn't help but be in awe of their appearance. Feeling less confident in her own cheap and shabby outfit, she caught the ladies' disapproving looks, and at that moment she felt insecure, knowing she couldn't compare to their attractiveness and confidence. As Noddy walked the short but seemingly endless path back home that night, her mind was consumed with thoughts and visions. She couldn't shake the images of herself as someone else, a regal queen adored in luxurious garments and sparkling jewels. But these visions were fleeting and disappearing amongst the noises of the hectic city. There was a nagging feeling within her soul, an unfilled desire for more now. She felt like pieces of herself were missing, lost somewhere. Despite starting off the day on a positive and exciting note, Noddy returned home feeling drained and disheartened about life. The weight of those missing pieces weighed heavily on her spirit. Meanwhile, Maureen laid awake in bed, feeling a bit under the weather, but she stayed up, anxiously waiting for Noddy Blues to come home safely. When she finally heard her enter the apartment, Maureen called out from the other room, asking how her first day at work went. Noddy's response was simple and subdued. Okay. She sank onto the couch, a clear indication that something was bothering her deeply. You don't sound too happy, Noddy Blues. What's going on? But don't worry, it's just a job, baby. There's some bean soup on the stove if you're hungry, Maureen said, coughing a little. Noddy, feeling a little down, started to drift off into a daydream. Suddenly, another vision appears before her eyes. But this time, she's not adored in royal garments as a beloved queen. Instead, the vision shows a young girl with brown skin and long black braided ponytails, dressed in traditional Native American brown clothing. Gazing into a river at night, she sees herself reflected in the water, with her bright blue glowing eyes back at her. In the background, a fainted female voice calls out, Jenna! Jenna! The young girl looks up with piercing blue eyes, and Noddy snaps out of her daydream, blinking as if something was stuck in her eye. Noddy, did you hear me, sweetie? Maureen said in a sickly voice. Noddy snapped out of her daydream and reassured Maureen she heard her. After that night, Noddy continued to have brief glimpses of a woman who resembled her. These visions would come to her every now and then, whether she was cooking at home, working, or walking down the street. She kept these experiences to herself, hoping that one day they would all make sense. As time went on, Noddy still used her iPod on a regular basis and even learned how to add new songs thanks to her boss Rich, who showed her how to use the computer at work. Rich, an Italian man in his late 50s, was always supportive and seemed like a cool boss. He frequently checked in with Noddy about how she was feeling and if she needed any help at work. Since Noddy didn't have proper documentation to work legally, Rich paid her cash. Despite this, he admired Noddy was a hard worker and had a positive attitude. She remained polite and helpful towards all customers, even the ones who were rude. It has been 3 months now, and one evening, 2 suspicious-looking men approached Noddy with false smiles plastered on their faces. They inquired about sizes for men's t-shirts, but something about their demeanor made Noddy uneasy. As she led them to the menswear section, one of the men flaunted a large sum of cash and asked Noddy how much she had made working at the store. Ignoring the question, Noddy gave them a wary look as they continued to try to persuade her with promises of easy money and a way out of her current job. Rich, Noddy's boss, observed the interaction and immediately recognized the type of man who were trying to hit on his employee. He walked over with a protective glint in his eye and addressed the man, making sure everything was all right. But despite his composed face, anger towards the sleazy man and concern for Noddy's safety simmered beneath the surface. The one hustler, holding a t-shirt, turned to Noddy and said, "I'll buy this one, beautiful." The 2 men then exchanged smirks and made their way to the cash register, where Rich checked them out with a disgusted attitude. As they started to leave the store, one of them looked back at Noddy and boasted, "Come find me on Parkland Ave if you're interested." Rich turned to Noddy and warned her, "You have to be very careful around guys like this. They're no good and will hurt nice young lady like you. They make money by doing bad things." Noddy stood there with a confused but curious expression on her face, unsure of what exactly Rich meant by bad things. At the end of the workday, Noddy received help from her boss, Rich, and co-worker Tony to close up shop. Tony, a teenager, was usually in charge of unloading trucks or assisting with heavy tasks when he wasn't working the register. Noddy saw him as a little brother and enjoyed his lighthearted jokes and adventurous spirit, particularly when it came to trying new snacks at the convenience store. He would even walk part of the way home with Noddy before heading to his own direction. One evening while closing up, Tony was singing loudly as usual. Noddy recognized the song and couldn't resist joining in. As she sang along, their boss Rich and Tony stopped what they were doing and watched in awe as Noddy's beautiful and powerful voice filled the store. Encouraged by Tony, she continued singing until the end of the popular R&B song. Rich and Tony were mesmerized and couldn't believe what they had just witnessed. Tony's expression was one of amazement as he repeated, "Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh!" multiple times in disbelief. "Wow, Noddy girl, you blew me away!" Rich stood frozen in awe for a few seconds before snapping out of it and saying, "That was incredible." Noddy just smiled at the two and wondered. She explained that she loved to sing. Suddenly, Noddy had another flash vision, but this time she saw violence and people crying out in pain and fear. "Noddy, that was truly amazing! Have you ever sung professionally?" Rich asked, but Noddy was lost in her trance. He called out her name, bringing her back to awareness. She then told him she had to leave and she rushed out of the shop. Tony tried to tell her to wait for him, but she had already ran out. As Noddy rushed away from the shop into the night air, she began to see more disturbing visions of herself floating in the air, emitting a blue light from her eyes that seemed to kill people. Their screams echoed in her mind. She was stopped in her tracks, transfixed by these gruesome scenes, until suddenly Tony caught up with her after chasing behind her out of the store. As he reached for her, he saw that she spoke in an unknown language with a deep, commanding voice. He called out to her, but she didn't respond. In fact, she became louder and more aggressive as she continued to speak in this mysterious tongue, causing Tony to worry. He called out her name again and grabbed her arm, trying to snap her out of whatever trance she was in. Suddenly, Noddy's eyes glowed brighter blue, and a loud thundering sound filled the sky above them. The ground began to tremble beneath their feet as Noddy's voice rose to a deafening pitch. The words she spoke vibrated through the air like an ancient incantation. Tony stumbled back, fear gripping his heart as he watched in horror. It was as if Noddy had tapped into some otherworldly power, a force beyond comprehension. The very fabric of reality seemed to wrap around her, shadows twisting, stretching in unnatural ways. And then, just as suddenly as it begun, everything stopped. The eerie blue light faded from Noddy's eyes, and she collapsed to the ground, grasping for breath. Tony rushed to her side, checking to see if she was okay. She was trembling, her eyes wide with bewilderment, as she looked up at him. "What? What happened?" she whispered, her voice barely above a whisper. Tony was still in shock and confusion as he looked at Noddy, who sat on the curb of the sidewalk, her body trembling. It was like she had been possessed or something. He couldn't understand what had just happened, and he was genuinely worried about her well-being. Tapping gently on her shoulder, Tony sat down beside her and tried to calm her shaken body. Noddy closed her eyes and took deep breaths, trying to gather herself after the strange episode that had just occurred. Tony explained what he had witnessed, how the ground shook beneath her feet and her eyes lit up like bursts of fireworks. To him, it was one of the coolest things he had ever seen, but he couldn't help but wonder if Noddy Blues was some kind of witch or supernatural being. As she opened her eyes and looked at Tony, Noddy's expression was a mix of fear and wonder. She didn't have all the answers either, but she knew one thing for sure: something powerful and mysterious resided within her, waiting to be explored.
If you made it this far, I hope you enjoyed this story by Dala and I Create Stories. Please follow, like, or subscribe for more stories. Until next time, happy listening.